not a short person. Do you think you're short?
Well, a little maybe, but, in some of my...
100-plus heat set back in 1980. Could we be there? It's possible. We've got incredible danger category heat still with us as we go on through the Friday. Again, things pretty hot south of the front, a little cooler back behind it. We'll look at what changes in the forecast on the way. Now to talk tropics, here's Dave.
Well, we just want to keep you apprised of a tropical storm, the first one of the season. It's still way out over the Atlantic Ocean, packing 50-mile-per-hour winds. It's Tropical Storm Alex, and it is still about 900 miles to the east of the islands here, but it's looking better than it was about 24 hours ago, and some intensification is expected. Tropical Storm Alex heading toward the west-northwest now at about 13 miles an hour, way out over the Atlantic. We'll keep you posted. We're keeping a close eye on it. Now here's a look at Friday's weather with Paul.
All right, starting up on toward our Friday morning. A little wet for Boston, the city, Philly, D.C. too. But it's going to move on. May see some late-day sunshine. It could help. Looks like a wet commute, though. Toward Pittsburgh, well, at 63 or so. Toward Detroit, temps around 60. Good day. Wet weather a little bit in the southeast. Not for the morning, though. That's okay. Hot for Texas again. Chicago off to a good start. And more importantly, a good finish, too. Minneapolis, fine. West Coast, pretty good. Pretty warm. Few clouds for the morning toward L.A. making the drive. A little wet parts of the west. How about some additional details? Well, look at this. Overnight low temperatures, a little bit hot and sticky south of the front. Along the front, expect storms to be fired up throughout the day. We'll add some heat for the afternoon, make the atmosphere more unstable, keep more wet weather around, and again, keep good conditions kind of at bay behind the front, like Chicago, where it looks good.
Well, Paul, neither you nor I won the big lottery, so we're going to have to head back into work tomorrow morning.
Yeah, I got to do it bright and early. We'll talk about that and travel-wise after your local forecast.
Right now, it's your local forecast on the Weather Channel.
In the pool 7 days a week. Great for my body, tough on my hair.
That's what you need.
Thanks so much for tuning us in here on the Weather Channel. I'm Jeff Morrow. We're going to take you through the next half hour, give you a look at the weather across the lower 48 and a sneak peek at our forecast right on through the weekend, even into early next week. That's coming up in just a moment. But first of all, we want to start our tour of the country here in the west. Pretty easy to pick out a swirl in the atmosphere right in through here, an upper level low. That has helped to enhance the shower and thunderstorm action in interior Oregon and southeast Washington. You can see the tops of some of the big thunderstorms here, particularly in northeast Oregon, crossing over the Columbia River and on up into Washington, maybe approaching the Spokane area if they hold together. Other big storms have fired up in Idaho. Not so much in southern Utah today. It was more northern Utah, and some huge thunderstorms flared up in eastern New Mexico as well as eastern Colorado, and there were some big flooding problems here, even around the Denver metropolitan area early in the day, but those storms have now shifted off toward the east. That's pretty much firing up right along the tail end of a front, a pretty vigorous front that has pushed well down here into the plains, gotten all the way into Oklahoma. That may finally bring some relief to places like Oklahoma City, which have been really toasty the last month or so. Doesn't look like this front may have enough push to go all the way into North Texas, at least as far as Dallas, but maybe, just maybe, there might be some outflow from a thunderstorm or something to the north. Maybe we'll get a few more clouds in and try to keep those temperatures down. As we take a look at a few radars in the northwest, again, some of the showers and storms crossing the Columbia River appear to be weakening a bit as they push north, but Spokane, you could still get some rain a little bit later on this evening. Farther east, things pretty quiet in Wyoming and much of eastern Montana, but you can see a pretty good slug of moisture moving up through Pocatello and right on up toward Idaho Falls up I-15. Then as we head farther down I-15, just a few showers crossing over the Great Salt Lake and on up toward Park City, Utah. And there is the heavy rain, which is pushed well east of Denver now, all the way into the southeast corner of the state. If you look here real closely, actually we have two areas of thunderstorms almost converging on each other developing here. So there could be a lot of rain right where Colorado, Kansas, and Oklahoma all come together there. You can see how that moisture is pushing out into the panhandle of Texas, out toward the Delhart vicinity and on over, well, west of Amarillo along Interstate 40. Other rains extending, excuse me, still back toward Albuquerque and even on down toward El Paso. Got up to 106 degrees today in Phoenix, 106 in Vegas, but it was much cooler today in Seattle and Portland than what you saw over the last several days. 2 days ago, it was in the upper 90s, setting records in Seattle. Yesterday in the 80s, today in the 70s. Portland, too, has been coming down. 2 days ago, you were over 100 degrees, so that's a good 30-degree temperature drop. Still 88 at Spokane, although those temperatures will be coming down as well. Salt Lake City, 92. Currently 78 there and 60 in Lander. And with the rain around Denver, again, a rather coolish evening at 60 degrees. 73 at Pendleton, Spokane holding in there at 70. Along the coast, temperatures right around that 60-degree mark, which is probably very close to what the water temperatures are. 63 at Ukiah, 61 at San Francisco, and 67 in Reno currently. 66 at San Diego and 68 in Ontario, California, 71 at Long Beach. One minor quake here, well out toward Hemet, California, a little over 2 on the Richter scale. One well inland from Monterey Bay, a little over 2, another in the Sierra Nevada, and one very near Seattle, but a rather minor quake, a little over 2 on the Richter scale. Nothing to report earthquake-wise in the Pacific Northwest. As we head back to the lower 48, we talked about the west and the rain, particularly in parts of New Mexico pulling out into northwest Texas and even western Oklahoma. But also as a couple of waves of low pressure are riding along this cold front here on up into the northeast. There's some locally heavy rains here as well. In fact, we had some tremendous thunderstorms in and around Baltimore and Washington earlier this evening that did cause some damage, knocked down some trees and some power lines. Lighter rains back with a steady rain through central Pennsylvania and now pushing on up through parts of western New England. There's a little bit closer inspection. Look at these big thunderstorms that have developed south of New York City, all the way down to Sandy Hook, and then hooking all the way back to just east of Philadelphia. Watch out Atlantic City a little bit later on this evening for some very heavy downpours. Other storms have developed in Tennessee and are pushing south. Here's a closer look at some of the storms trying to work their way toward Huntsville and on down through Murfreesboro and maybe Chattanooga eventually through Crossville and on over toward Knoxville, Tennessee. Then as we take a look at temperatures, well, look at the difference here. North of that front, below average temperature readings. South of it, still pretty hot for Oklahoma City and Dallas. In fact, we did have a couple of records today, Shreveport and Tyler, Texas. And there's a look at your current temperature readings. Now, a few city forecasts.
It's time for Weather Center at the Weather Channel. I'm Paul Emick. Glad you're here. Let's talk about the wet weather and what's to come of our Friday, and then we'll kind of look back at history because we have to talk about Thursday, the day that was. Because how can you know where you're going till you see where you've been, right? We'll talk about some of the records and how the record heat could still be with us in many parts of the country for a number of days to come. Wet in the Northeast, Ohio Valley, and parts of the West still pretty wet, and saw a pretty stormy night here on Boise, Idaho. Things will get a little bit quieter for Boise. We'll discuss that. Heat was another big story. Still is. Shreveport 105, Tyler, Texas 104. Those are records for Thursday. Incredible heat in Texas. Hot stretch. Big D. Their high temperature has been 100 degrees or greater for 25 straight days. Looks like we're well on our way to our 26th with this day today, Friday. That's not the longest stretch. It's the second longest stretch. The longest stretch was 42 days in 1980. Have to see how many additional days we may keep this around. We may see a little cooling taking place in a few days by a degree or two, but not a dramatic amount of cooling. But 25 straight days thus far. Well, you can see in Dallas, we were quite a bit above average. About 10 degrees or so, maybe in Oklahoma City, Little Rock, Arkansas, throughout Texas, temperatures above average. A little below average, like around Portland, and also right here in the middle of the country, and bits of the Northeast, we had the clouds holding on. Temperatures a little cooler around St. Louis and Kansas City, parts of Nebraska and Dakotas, too. A few clouds held on. That's part of the reason why. 75 around St. Louis. 79 towards Chicago was a pretty decent day, pretty good day. But temperatures were down just a bit. Cold front has passed, cool air settled in, big stable dome and ascending air, providing a good day. High of 80 for Minneapolis, too. That's all right. That's all right. South of the front, the heat is still oppressing us. 92 to Orlando, same for Miami. 106 to Phoenix, but right here, the bigger story, 100 in Houston, 104 yet again for Dallas. That was the high temperature for the day. What about elsewhere across the United States? Well, into Alaska, high temperature 68 McGrath. Fairbanks at 66, great city there, beautiful place. 70 for Anchorage, King Salmon 72. Toward Barrow, 48 was our high for the day. 82 to Lihue, 84 to Honolulu, and 81 toward Hilo. And some spots, though, well, the waves, the surf may be a little bit higher over the next few days. We got a tropical system that's fading fast, that's moving away from the island. It's not going to pose a big threat, but it has been helping to kick up the waves a bit on some of the shores here, so surfers take note. Some places encountering some 6 to 8 feet surf, we ordinarily see about 4 to 6, so you may see a little benefit as far as that goes from the higher surf into parts of Hawaii. But again, the best part is that the system is on its way away and fading fast. Look across the contiguous 48, western U.S., well, little storm popping up here and there. We'll deal with that throughout our day. Even some strong storm potential, as you'll see in moments. Ohio Valley wet and Northeast wet just a little bit longer. Strong storm potential, though. Parts of the Ohio Valley and Tennessee Valley into bits of Texas and also parts of Idaho and Montana. Could see a risk of some strong storminess. Here's a look at the big picture of all the wet weather. Not every place we see the green shading is going to be seeing all-day soaking rains. Scattered showers, yeah, between now and noon. Some places we'll see a lot, though. We'll show you in moments the spots annotated for over an inch, including bits of the Northeast and even the Tennessee Valley. But wet weather potential where you see the green between now and noon. Do want to point out, though, in the Northeast, we'll probably see this till noon, but beyond that time, moving on. We'll move the system away from shore and get on to better conditions. Windy conditions, not real widespread, but if you are behind the wheel and you are near some storms, you may see some wind generated by that. Could cause some problems behind the wheel there, too. Foggy travel by the Carolinas, maybe toward Myrtle Beach and throughout North Carolina around the Cape Hatteras area and Hampton Roads, too, around Virginia Beach. We could see some fog of our own in the morning. So be careful behind the wheel. Use those low beam headlights. Look at this. Cool air behind the front. I think that's a pretty nice change of pace. Chicagoland, Milwaukee, Toledo, Minneapolis, that's nice. 40s, northern parts of Minnesota and even a bit of Wisconsin. That cool air is on the way. We don't have it this morning in New York City and Boston. We're going to get some cooler air with us. That's the good news. Hang on. South of the front, it's bad news in that we still have heat and even storm potential, especially along the front. Anywhere in the Northeast, we can see some wet weather as our low pressure leaves and may kick up the wind a bit toward the Cape as the day goes on. Showers and storms along the front, stretching all the way back to the western U.S., back in Idaho, another slow-moving disturbance we've been dealing with for a while. Going to keep some storms slowly moving on the Northeast just a bit. Pretty wet, too, in parts of Wyoming. Could see some strong storm potential here as well before the day is over. Scattered storms in the southeast, too, will add some heating to destabilize the atmosphere for Friday afternoon. Between now and noon, though, heaviest amounts of precipitation lingering in the Northeast, maybe close to Philly or Atlantic City, over an inch. A couple of inches here in parts of the Tennessee Valley and Even a few more inches added into parts of Texas and New Mexico as well in that spot. Heat, pretty widespread southeast all the way to the southwest. Not bad for the northeast, just a little bit wet. We'll talk about how the wet weather could impact travel and travel-wise next.